So our next speaker is Professor Harley Davies, who's a Professor of Business Strategy at the Business Research Institute here at the University of Chester. Gary joined the BRI from Manchester Business School in 2017. His links with Chester, however, date back to 2015 when he was appointed as a visiting professor. His academic career has involved sponsorships with Tesco, Asda and the Post Office. Before his academic career, he worked with the Mars Group and British Aluminium. He also acts as a consultant in business strategy and reputation management. Gary has worked on the branding of both Manchester and Moscow. His involvement in retailing dates back 30 years to when he led the UK's first undergraduate degree in retail. His main area of research is reputation and branding. He's published in excess of 60 articles and has 8 books with his name on so far. If you're expecting the former Radio 1 DJ from the 1980s, I apologise. I had to get the elephant out of the room, Gary. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Gary.
The other Gary Davies started off in Placemate Disco underneath what was the Manchester Polytechnic building where I started my academic career. But yes, I found myself involved in retailing about 30 years ago now, and I've spent quite a lot of time in that space. And what I'll be talking to you about today then is high street branding. I realise an awful lot of people in the room know perhaps an awful lot more than I do about the practicalities of retailing, and in the words of one of them just before the coffee break, this presentation better be a good one, Gary. So we'll see. Starting off with a little bit of academic theory. You were judging me as that introduction was made, and a lot of psychological theory suggests that there were 3, maybe 2 big, 1 not so big, issues that you were filing away in your brain. You were judging me for my competence to start with. Is what I'm going to be talking about going to be of any relevance? And it's always useful then at a conference to have an introduction in the way that I had that sort of gives me a little bit of credibility in the audience. So maybe that box was ticked. But how about my warmth, trustworthiness, supportive? You know, how on earth do you judge that? You made that judgment as soon as you saw me. And it's because of our history as human beings. We had to make those sort of judgments quickly, way back in the cave age. And if we didn't make those judgments, and if we didn't make them successfully, we died out. So modern humans automatically make judgments on anything along these lines of whether or not a new brand or a new individual or a new city or a new retail offer. What do we think of it in terms of its warmth and competence? And then the last one I want to spend a little bit of time on as well in the context of Chester. Where do we file it in terms of status? Where is it? Upmarket and downmarket. It's a good place to start talking about status, because our society is very status conscious, but we don't like to talk about it. We don't like to talk about it. And I think in the context of the future of Chester, it's absolutely vital. Here's what people think of us. An amazing shopping area, a very scenic shopping area, the 5th happiest place to live in Britain. Somebody said earlier, well, who's going to be taking the point of view of the residents, the people that live here, actually do the shopping, do the tourism some of the time? And you can't split them up into different boxes. You can't put them into different places. But we do well on it. Chester named top place to live in the UK, amongst the best value cities for a getaway. Not too sure value is something that we necessarily want to be landed with. And I'll explain a little bit about that later. Stunning. What history and classiness. Now, I've buried this down the bottom because this is a quote from a Canadian tourist on TripAdvisor. That's what he thinks of us. Those are the words that he chose. And sometimes we forget it's not what we think as business people or academics. It's what customers and shoppers and students think about what you're trying to offer them takes primacy. And that's an interesting quote. Classiness. So there's us, and when you look at it, it's quite classy. So why do we shop? And again, if you ask people, an awful lot of people say, I hate shopping. I can't wait to get out of it. And I said, oh, I quite like shopping, quite like going round Tesco's and Sainsbury's even on a Friday, and look as if you're absolutely barking mad. Absolutely barking mad. And yet psychologists, again, have looked at motives for shopping, come out with things like this. We shop to acquire, no problem, to express ourselves, to say to ourselves and to other people who we are as individuals, and to have fun. And to have fun. Even in the food shop, sometimes it can be fun. Some people can even be described as shopping enthusiasts. Again, nobody in this room is going to admit to that. But these are two American academics. Such avid shoppers may experience positive emotional arousal and even joy. Much more than I'm giving you at the moment. This is the threat to all of that. It's unusual when you get a government statistical series that you look at and you get a very clear picture of what's going on. We are the heaviest users of the internet when it comes to shopping in the world. And statisticians will be looking at that line and saying it's not even linear, Gary. It may be even curving up slightly. And other statisticians will be saying, oh, that means it's going to be an S-shaped curve. It's going to flatten off. Is it? Is it? Part of the problem here is it's fairly recent. We haven't got to grips with it as retailers yet. It really coincides with the growth of the youth, growth in the use of smartphones. And there's a clue in the word, smartphones. It is smart to do this. One or two of you are already starting to look at your smartphones. I'm sure you're on the Twitter feed that we were talked about earlier, and you're not sending texts. But they're a central part of our lives now, and it's how many of us shop. And when online shopping started, it was a pretty dire experience, not only on the websites, but also waiting for delivery. 1 week, 2 weeks, being in all day. Absolute nightmare. And the one thing that the online retailers have done is make online shopping and the delivery of goods a more hedonistic experience, a more enjoyable experience. It is fun to place an order and it turns up at home and it's like Christmas. You unwrap this box and you know that you can send it back. You know that you can trust the offer. And mainstream retailing has not responded to that. It's not upped its game. It will have to. This is the consequence. Occupancy down in many retail centres. It's flattened out a bit, really, but it's still over 10% of retail outlets in this country are not occupied. And there might be tax reasons for it. But nobody is going to keep a retail outlet closed if they can make more money by having it open. So how do we bridge that gap? And I don't think there's a consensus out there. And I'm supposed to be talking about black and white to you today. It's going to be a bit muddy. It's going to be a bit about ideas that might be useful rather than actual things that I know and can guarantee will be successful. And just to give you an idea of the breadth of the problem, 2 retailers, British Home Stores and Toys R Us, both closed. Which was the quickest to refill? The Outoftown Offer. The Outoftown Offer. And I don't think that's an unfair generalisation, that it's much more difficult to fill that than it is to fill that, even though that's a much bigger space. And the impact of having a store that size and its centrality in our retail offer, the impact of having that boarded up with an old, now defunct name on it, on shoppers can only be guessed at if you think of shopping as a psychologically driven experience. Some retail premises in the high street get filled very quickly. Do you remember what this used to be? Woolies. That was Woolies. And quickly replaced by Primark. And if you walk down the high street in Chester, the most prominent bags are Primark. Is that really compatible with how that Canadians saw our town? Nothing wrong with Primark, a fantastic retailer, they make an awful lot of money, but is that really Chester? And if it isn't, then what do we do about it? These are the 4 most prominent shops in Chester according to TripAdvisor. This is the audience participation time now. You have to tell me who they are. Who they are. Corks out. What's that one? This one? This is number 1. Secret Garden, yes. Yeah, that's number 1. The antique shop. Number 4. Tobacconists, yes, the tobacconists, whose name I don't even try and pronounce. They've got something in common. I think they're all independent retailers, and they're all a little bit wacky. I apologise for that description, but they're a little bit idiosyncratic in what they do, in what they offer. And my 2 male companions, as I was walking here this morning, none of them got any of these right when I asked them for the top 4. Neither of them got any of these right, and I don't think I would have either. It was a surprise. In fact, I've never been to that one. But now I've told you it's Chester's number 1. I wonder how many of us will be going along to see exactly what is going on there. So how do we encourage then more offers like that into our city centre, which people actually like? This isn't perhaps the next slide that you were expecting, given what I've been talking about with the advent of online retailing. And Amazon are seen as the devils here. And in many ways, they can be blamed for an awful lot of the transformation that's happened in our the negative transformation in our high streets. But this is Amazon's latest retail outlet. It's opened in New York about 6 months ago. You can't buy anything there, but you can see the top offers that Amazon have on its website. You can touch them, you can see them, and then you can use your mobile phone to actually buy them. That's a wacky idea. I've no idea if it's going to work. Yeah. It is very, very similar to Argos, but you cannot buy anything here, which does make it different. You cannot buy anything, which does make it different. And everything that's on sale is not being retailed by Amazon. Amazon are the intermediary, they're the platform. So it is slightly different and risky. I spend a lot of time in South Korea, and their society is different from ours, and maybe some of their thinking might not be relevant to this city. But let's see. On the left-hand part of the slide is a not untypical part of the retail offer in Seoul. A string of cosmetic shops side by side, all appealing to different age groups, but mainly to the young. And cosmetics is a very nice business, thank you, if you get it right. The average spend per household in this country per annum is £1,000 per annum. About the same that those at the bottom of the pyramid spend on food. And yet where in Chester would you go to buy cosmetics other than the mainstream? Difficult to see it. How about then this sort of offer coming over here? It will come over here if the bottom right-hand corner slide takes off in Europe. And this is Kpop. We've all seen Gangnam Style. We all know what to do at the next wedding party that we go to. But an awful lot of youngsters in our society have not yet bought into Kpop. And this next slide will indicate why. The largest Korean cosmetics organization company, about number 7, I think it is in the world, is Amora Pacific. And this is one of their brands, Innisfree. And the 2 brand ambassadors on the right-hand side used to be in K-pop groups, but are now mainstream actors. And yes, the gentleman on the right-hand bottom corner is wearing makeup. And as you go into those shops in the centre of Seoul, you will see sales assistants in makeup. And it is not unusual to see young Korean males in makeup. I'm not suggesting that is mandatory to Chester, or that becomes part of the corporate uniform that we have to wear at the University of Chester either. Just saying, just because you look at an idea and you think, no, immediately, doesn't mean that it's not going to work. Innisfree is one of a number of Amore Pacific brands. It comes from Jeju Island. In terms of the concept, they grow tea there. It's the biggest tourist location in South Korea. And I mention that because I don't think, particularly in the context of Chester, that you can separate tourism and retailing. They come hand in hand, particularly when it's an issue of making money. So can we attract retailers such as Amore Pacific into Chester? They haven't heard of us. They have never heard of the city of Chester. They've heard of Manchester because of football. They might have heard of Liverpool for vaguely similar reasons, but they've never heard of Chester. And they've no idea about the potential that this city offers. Here's a department store I tried to get interested in the idea of coming to Chester. It's called Lotte. They own hotels as well as food retail operations and department stores, but this is the food offer within one of their department stores. They make Waitrose look cheap. They really do. And they have a combination of a food court and the food offer itself, the grocery shopping offer itself. So you can sit there and have a cup of coffee, a fast meal, whatever it is you want, and you can smell the fresh produce as well that you might want to go and buy later. It is expensive. But the South Koreans are not that affluent. The sort of GDP per head of population getting close to ours, but we are still richer than they are. Would that sort of offer work in Chester? I don't know. I don't know. I mentioned this idea of tourism coming hand in hand with retailing, and I frankly believe that's something that it would be extremely dangerous to ignore. If you look at the footfall in the middle of Chester, it's an unusually strong mix of people that have come here for tourism and people who have come here to shop. Sometimes that doesn't work. People won't. If they come here for tourism, they've got something different in their mind, and that's all they want to come here for is tourism, and you can't get them to buy in a shop, and the other way round. But there's a significant overlap between the motivations for tourism and the motivations for shopping. Here's one summary of a lot of the research that's done on tourism motivations. People who travelled regularly saw a long-term impact in terms of sense of being, direction in life, and well-being. The next time you're waiting for a delayed flight, remember that. Remember that. I was talking to a friend about having to do this presentation today, and I said, well, where do I start about talking about why people come to Chester? And he said, well, why don't you start with the Romans? So I did. And this is a Roman travel writer from about the time that the Romans were starting to get interested in our country. Voyage, travel, and change of place impart vigour. So the two motivations are all there up in the sort of cerebral cortex in our sort of pleasure centres, shopping and tourism. And I think one of our previous speakers already said, we don't link, it was Chris Mathers actually, we don't link those two together as much as we might. Our tourism is a little bit unusual. A lot of it is single-day visit. So people just come here for one day and then disappear again. So we haven't got a great deal of opportunity of grabbing them while we're here. We've got to make the most of it in terms of that business opportunity. And here's my personal gripe. As a resident of Chester, as a ratepayer, and as someone that would like to see Chester improve in terms of and go forward into the future. We're not very good at telling people what's actually happening. In the last 3 months, I've had visitors from Japan, Chile, and Canada, and they're here for 2 and 3 weeks, and you run out of things to do. You run out of things to do. And it really annoyed me when I saw 2 Santas going the other direction in towards Chester, because I didn't know the Santa Dash was on that day. And that would have been great to take them there. It was it would reinforce their stereotype of what it is to be British, to be a bit strange and off the wall. And I bet they would have talked about that, and that would have been one of their abiding memories. We've had a few mentions of the of the castle. I found out that the castle was open through word of mouth. I'm constantly looking online and saying, what's on tomorrow in Chester? And there's too many places to get that information, and an awful lot of the information tends not to be up to date and specific. And then my last gripe, bottom left-hand corner, I live in Hanbridge. I cross over into Chester, Main, bottom end of Bridge Street, and quite often you get a notice on the bottom end of Bridge Street that it will be closed. And great that we're told that this will happen, but I'm not told why. And quite often it's an event, and I would like to know, please, why. Because I might like to go there, because I'm a potential tourist as well as a resident. I'm a potential shopper in the centre of Chester as well as in Hanbridge. Sorry to get enthusiastic, but this is the gripe slide. I'll calm down now. Tim mentioned statistics about the population. And we have some really good statistical data on the council's website. Excellent, really good. The statistic that shocked me was the ageing population one. Population age 65 plus will increase from 70,000 in 2015 to over 100,000 in 2035. What's the total population of Chester? That's going to be a significant percentage. And that's an opportunity and a threat. There's an opportunity there because of targeting the grey market. But it's a difficult market to target. It's really, really difficult. People my age do not like to be reminded of it. Don't like to be reminded of it. So how do we go about it? The first thing to say is to point out the raw economics here. Under the current administration, the older in our society have done particularly well out of changes in the economy. The last budget gave me a net increase in my income post-tax of £1,000 per annum. I don't need it. But now I've got the problem of what to do with it. Help me, guys. Help me. Help me. The bottom end of society, we have the problem here, and we need to encourage people, as Tim was saying, to stay, the younger people to stay in Chester. But it's a damn expensive place to set up. We need reasonably priced accommodation. You can see where the youngsters come from who work in Chester. They're queuing up on the peripheral roads to get in. They're struggling in through different means of transport. We need to rethink how we approach the issue of the young and the old in our society. Older people have got lots of money. A lot of it's tied up in housing, but my apologies for the age of this slide. It goes back to 2005, but I couldn't find anything more recent. So as we go up in age, this glorious peak here, where people over the age of 60 are net positive financially, and you add in housing wealth, these people are stinking rich. Look around, look at the person next to you and ask yourself, are they in that group? Give them your business card. Tell them who you are. Tell them that you can help them spend this money. A lot of people, retailers, have gone into this space. As you get older, you get hard of hearing. That's one of our local retailers. Retirement centres are cropping up around Chester. But how about this for rethinking it? The cooperative funeral care is one of the most profitable bits of the Co-op, and it's the best conference to go to. If you get an invitation to the Co-op Funeral Care Conference, go along. The jokes are the best I've ever heard. They're really good. And this could be a joke. This could be a joke. Here are the relatives thinking about their inheritance, and here's the body in this gun carriage that cost a couple of grand on its way towards them, saying, aha, you think you're getting a lot of money, here we go. I don't know, and I do apologise if I've upset anybody by showing them this slide, but we have to rethink every aspect of how you make offers to people. And you can prepay for this. You can decide before the magic day that that is exactly how you want to go out. How long was this shop in Chester for? barely a year. It's difficult to target this group. It's an American retailer, started off as a surfer, and failed miserably. So I have no easy answers as to how you can target that group. But here's one brand that is desperately trying not to target it, and the more it tries, the more it fails. This is Harley Davidson, and if you look at the gentleman here, he's got the Harley badge, and he's not wearing a helmet, and you can tell by the scars why. And the lady he's got with him has got this ridiculous outfit on top of her, and they are Harley brand users. Now, what's that got to do with motorcycling or travel or anything else? Absolutely zip. This is branding, guys. This is branding. The only problem for Harley is that that's not the core customer. The core customer is this guy. Because older people quite like the idea of going out and doing something that they didn't do when they were young and foolish. Being old and foolish is brilliant. I go deep sea sailing every year. It frightens the life out of me and the rest of the family. But this time, every year, I think, yeah, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take that risk again. I'm going to go sailing on a big ocean yacht. And don't forget older people as potential employees. A lot of our research shows that hiring and having older employees, if you're a retail business, is bad for business. It's been one of Marks and Spencer's problems. The woman that could sell miniskirts in the 80s can't sell them to her daughter in the year 2000. If you look at the average age of a Marks and Spencer's employee in their fashion stores, it's older and older and older. And there's a correlation between the age of the employee and the age of the customer. But in B&Q, it can be useful. You can employ older men, terribly sexist, do apologise, because they give the image that they know about DIY. In my daughter's household, she puts the shelves up. She wires the new speakers into the hi-fi system because she's an engineer. But that's our stereotype, and B&Q play along with that in terms of the imagery that they try and present to us through their employees. And those you can't see it, I'm 96 today. I'm 96 today. Well, I'm not 96, but it's about time I gave you as much of a summary as I can. We've got to have a retail offer, individual shops, retail offer as a whole that ticks the warmth, competence and status boxes. And I've hinted that I think the status box is the most significant when it comes to positioning Chester as a retail offer on the national stage. The solution to our problem of closing shops is neither simple nor obvious. I do apologise for not having a simple answer for you. But certainly it's a retail offer that's got to be complemented and complements tourism, seems to me to make an awful lot of sense. There are two market segments we need to focus on. The old, because that's the catchment that we've now got. Those are the employee base that we now landed with. And the young, because as you go down the centre of Chester, we don't get young shoppers. They're in Cheshire Oaks. Make Chester a place where new retail offers can be tested. Let's get the Koreans over. Let's get the Chinese over. Let's get these different ideas over and tell them that Chester, because of the very high footfall and the affluent location, is a damn good place to test out a new retail idea. And finally then, please don't ignore the tourists from Hanbridge, Hoole and other parts of Chester. That's me, and that's been High Street Branding.